Hello everyone, my name is Crystal Cruz and I work for the Financial Aid Office at Brown College, and today I would like to talk to you about the Grad Plus loan. Students pursuing graduate or professional degrees are also eligible for federal student loans, and we will go over exactly how grad students can apply. So first, let's start off with what exactly graduate/professional students are eligible for. Graduate students are eligible for two types of federal student loans, which include direct unsubsidized loans and graduate plus loans. However, the first step in applying for either of these loans will be completing the FAFSA application on the studentaid.gov website. By completing the FAFSA application, students will be able to be informed of approximately how much aid they will be receiving in unsubsidized loans. Now, if students find themselves needing further financial assistance, they can apply for the Grad Plus loan, which is also on the studentaid.gov website. And we will come back to how to apply in just a moment. But let's talk about some things to remember before beginning a Grad Plus loan application. So first, if a student has a security freeze on their credit file, they must lift or remove the freeze at each credit bureau before they continue the application process. Second, students will need to pass a simple credit check, and if those decline, students can reapply with a qualified cosigner. Now, lastly, students who are applying for a Grad Plus loan can borrow up to but not exceeding the full annual cost of attendance. So now that we know those things, let's go back to how to apply for a Grad Plus loan. Students will log on to the studentaid.gov website using their FSA ID and password, which is the same login information they use to complete the FAFSA. Students will click on Apply for Aid at the top of the page, and then on the drop-down menu, they will click on Apply for a Grad Plus loan. Once the student is logged on to apply for the Grad Plus loan, they'll be taken to the Grad Plus loan application homepage, where they'll begin the process. And they will start off by inputting personal and school information. Now, students must select and notify the school they're attending by searching for the state and school name, as you can see here. Now, in order to complete the Grad Plus loan application, there is a mandatory credit check that the borrower must pass. If the credit check is approved, the school selected will be notified, and the borrower must then conclude some additional steps before the loans can be processed. And we'll come back to these additional steps in a later slide. If the credit check is declined, the borrower still has further options they can take to try and obtain the loan, such as getting an endorser or claiming extenuating circumstances. And I will talk more about these options at the end of the presentation. If the student is approved for the plus credit check, then this is what the confirmation page will look like. As you can see, it states you have successfully submitted a direct plus loan request and your credit has been approved. Now, as mentioned before, once the student is approved, there are some additional steps that must be taken before the school can process the loans. And the additional steps include completing an entrance counseling and a master promissory note, which is also known as the MPN. And I'll start off by speaking about the entrance counseling. The entrance counseling is a workshop students complete to get a better understanding of the responsibilities and obligations they're assuming. This is also done on the studentaid.gov website using the student's FSA ID and password. Students will click on Complete Aid Process on the top of the page, and then select Complete Entrance Counseling on the drop-down menu. Once the students are logged on to complete the entrance counseling, they have to fill out some personal and school information. They will also have to fill out some check your knowledge questions, which are mandatory. Now, once students are done with the entrance counseling, they will receive a confirmation page, and this is what it will look like. students have the option to print and save it for their records. And once the student has submitted the entrance counseling, the school will be notified within the next 24 hours. So after completing the entrance counseling, students should then proceed to completing the graduate master promissory note. The MPN is a document students must fill out and then sign and submit, which state the borrower's rights and responsibilities, as well as the terms and conditions for loan repayment between the borrower and the lender. The MPN takes about 30 minutes and must be done in one sitting. Unfortunately, students do not have the option to save and come back to it later on. One of the most important steps in completing the MPN is listing the contact information of 2 mandatory references. And students should make sure that they have the phone number and address of these 2 references before they begin the MPN. The MPN is also done on the studentaid.gov website using the FSA ID and passwords. Students will click on Complete Aid Process at the top of the page and then select MPN for graduate/professional students at the bottom of the drop-down menu. And it is very important that students click on the correct MPN because there are 2 listed once the drop-down menu comes. Students need to click MPN for graduate students if they are completing the Graduate Plus loan application. Once again, the MPN for graduate students/professional students. Okay, and now let's go back to these references and why this is a very important step in completing the MPN. The MPN requires the names and contact information of 2 references. These references are not used to vouch for the student's financial character. On the contrary, they are only contacted if mail that was meant for the student was returned back as undeliverable. Therefore, the references listed on the MPN should be people who always know the student's current address, such as a parent or guardian. However, please note that both references cannot have the same address and they must both reside in the US. So once students have signed and submitted the MPN, they will receive a confirmation page, and this is what it will look like. They can print it and save it for their records, and they'll be able to do this at the bottom of the page where you see View PDF Document. And the school will be notified, once again, 24 hours after the student has submitted it. And finally, after all of this is completed, the FAFSA, the credit check, the MPN, the entrance counseling, the student's loans can finally be processed. But there may be a possibility that a student's credit check is declined. So what now? Is this the end of the road for them? No, there are alternative options as mentioned before. So what exactly are these alternative options that students can try? So additional options available include getting an endorser and providing documentation of extenuating circumstances. So if students who have adverse credit history end up doing one of these options, they also have to make sure that they fill out the Plus credit counseling. And we will talk about this later on as well. So obtaining an endorser. If denied for a Grad Plus loan, a borrower can obtain an endorser and then reapply. An endorser is someone who agrees to repay the Plus loan if the borrower defaults or is unable to make payments. The endorser will begin this process by first creating an FSA ID and password on the studentaid.gov website again. In order to complete the endorser application, the student must provide the endorser with some information, which includes the endorser code or ward identification number and the student's last name. The endorser code will be provided in an email after completing the Grad Plus loan application. Now, in order to endorse a Plus loan, the endorser will go on to studentaid.gov, select Apply for Aid at the top of the page, and then on the drop-down menu, they will select Endorse a Plus loan. And once again, they'll be able to do this by using their FSA ID and password. Now, the second option available to students whose credit check was declined is proving that the student is facing extenuating circumstances. If the student is having extenuating circumstances relating to the student's average credit history, the student must provide a statement which contains an explanation of the circumstances that they are going through at the moment, along with applicable documents to support this claim. This is also done on the studentaid.gov website. The student will select apply for aid at the top of the page and then click appeal a credit decision at the bottom of the drop-down menu. Now, students who have an average credit history and are therefore have had to apply for a PLUS loan by obtaining an endorser or claiming extenuating circumstances must then complete a PLUS credit counseling, as I have mentioned before. And this counseling is used to help grad students understand the obligations associated with borrowing a PLUS loan, and it assists them in making careful decisions about taking on additional student debt. And grad students can complete the PLUS credit counseling on the studentaid.gov website, once again using their FSA ID and password. They will click on applied for aid at the top of the page and then select complete PLUS credit counseling at the bottom of the drop-down menu. So after all of this hard work, guys, you can say you finally concluded the loan application process. And we know it's a lot of work. There might be assistance that you need. And if even with these options, the loan is not approved, students may be eligible for an additional unsubsidized loans. They can talk to their financial counselors about this. If students have additional questions or concerns, they can contact Vaughn through email, phone, or Zoom. We understand how stressful all of this may be, but we always want our students to know that we are always here to help with that. And I wish everyone a safe one, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.